Hey, afternoon, everyone. Getting in our recap of today's price action here in ES. As usual, just checking that hourly chart before we really get into it. We mentioned last night, right, that we would want to see how this 1 hour fair value gap left behind from yesterday played out. If we were to trade up and through it with a candle closure, then we would then look for buy side, right, and potentially higher prices. So as you see right on that hourly, we do trade back up and through it, get a candle closure above, and that's why we see right from there, we turn this into an inversion and use it as support. And we really rally higher today, right? So a real strong rally. That makes sense, right? Because why? This shaded area here is a daily fair value gap. So we've traded now into a higher time frame discount. And now we're seeing expansion from that discount. Here on the 5, just wanted to point out this. So inside of now this, right, original 1 hour fair value gap, we create this 5 minute fair value gap here. Notice how this 5 minute fair value gap is aligned with, right with that consequent encroachment of this now 1 hour fair value gap. So we really like to see that, right? Just observing price action here in London. So as we tap into the high of this 1 hour, we get initial resistance here. Right, just creating now some short-term equal lows. So that way here at 8:30, we could use these sell side, right, liquidity pools as an area of interest as we dive down into it to clear the stops and return now into that 5 minute fair value gap, as well as the consequent encroachment of this now 1 hour inversion, right? Because as we first trade up and into it, once we start seeing candle bodies that close above it, this 1 hour fair value gap now becomes an inversion level. If I was to pair that with, now this is the 15 minute, or excuse me, the 5 minute fair value gap. So this is still inside of the hourly, just refining it a little bit more. You'll see how, right, we create those short-term lows just above that level. And at 8:30, we then use those stops, right, as I draw on liquidity and attack that and return into our 5 minute fair value gap, as well as order block level here. As I speak about, I like this order block because why? Not only does it get broken with, right, that expansion, leaving behind a fair value gap, we also have no up close wicks. And this candle also ran a short-term low. So, right, this was a very high probability order block, especially adding to that it's right at that consequent encroachment of the hourly fair value gap. So a lot of things here that pointed towards this being where price would hold. Right, just on that 5 minute, as we see once we trade into that, from there, right, full bullish structure. So we find support, clear that short-term low. And from that point on, right, all our discounts continue to get respected. So this fair value gap here holds us, trades us higher. This was our YouTube model now that we called out. So we have this short-term low cleared. Here at this high, as we break that high, that becomes our market structure shift. So we put in this YouTube model, which holds and continues to send us higher the remainder of the day. Here, as I drop down to the 1 minute, right, still just showing you, you'll see now, right, this return into that fair value gap. Notice where the candle bodies hold. So that 5 minute fair value gap holds these candle bodies beautifully here in this area. Just really nice to see. And from there, right, just continued higher. We create now, so notice, right, this was also that 5 minute fair value gap. So I transpose these onto lower time frames, right? It gives you a real clear view of price when you do that. So we see now how this volume imbalance is aligned with that 5 minute fair value gap. So just prior to 9:30 now, we consolidate, right? We create these equal lows just above that 5 minute fair value gap. So now at 9:30, but really that same idea we had here where we created equal lows above our fair value gap. Same thing plays out here, just in a smaller fractal. So equal lows get ran. We return into a discount in the form of this 5 minute fair value gap paired with volume imbalances. And then from there, after clearing a short-term low, we break higher, right? Creating market structure shifts here, here. And then this became a market structure shift on the, right, 5 minute time frame. So when we first started engaging this morning, right, we were waiting till 10 o'clock. So we got on here. we noticed how as we broke market structure at this high, we now did it with a fair value gap. So we always like to see that, right? And that's a good indication that price is going to continue to trend higher if we're breaking through old highs, leaving fair value gaps as we do it. As I mentioned, we have these two down close candles, right? Also being classified as your order block level. And you'll see how that's also aligned with this volume imbalance. So once again, stacking many concepts, right? Multiple things here, adding to confluence that we would see higher prices from this area. At the time we had spoke how, right, we would just bounce here. Once we created this smaller 1 minute fair value gap, we expected price to hold there. We see the candle bodies beautifully respecting that level. And from there we get that initial pump up to now clear out. Right, if I just go to a 5 minute quickly, this run up here was just to return into this hourly, right, fair value gap, as well as clear now all of these buy side liquidity points. So all these swing highs that remained from yesterday get targeted. You'll see as we first trade into this 5 minute fair value gap on the higher time frame, we do get a slight retracement, but we're understanding, right, that our higher time frame draw on liquidity is still, don't get lost now as I go back to the hourly chart, right? We had reckoned that these highs would be our buy side target. These relative equal highs paired with a high of this, right? This is the 5 minute fair value gap, but you'll see it's paired with the hourly as well. But since our higher time frame draw was this buy side and we had fell short, right? Fell just short of it here. We were expecting that this breaking structure lower was simply a return back into these discounts. So if I go down to the lower time frame, right, that was simply a return into our original fair value gap that we pointed out in the morning, right? So we still hold there. This whole run lower, right, was just to now bait and create more liquidity above these relative equal highs that we could take as we ran through our higher time frame buy side target. This here was that reversal pattern that I called out for us this morning. So as we're approaching now this discount, right, this 1 minute fair value gap, we're doing it with the 3 drives pattern. So we have 1, 2, 3 drives lower, right? So now we would expect a reversal and higher prices. Just to repoint out the order block that we mentioned, same idea, right? High probability. Because why? Broken through with a fair value gap. No upwards wicks, right? So no wicks to the top side in this candle. And it also cleared a short-term low. So same idea as the one we showed before. And right, that's why price holds here beautifully. Look at the candle bodies holding right at that fair value gap before we finally get that now expansion up and through, right, these relative equal highs and clearing now our buy side that we had been looking for all morning. We pointed out now, since we traded up and through this high with displacement, creating another fair value gap, we then expected this 1 minute to hold us, right? Just applying that same logic that we applied here and this morning. So as we cleared this high, right, we did it with that displacement left behind our fair value gap. We're already looking for higher prices, right? So this same idea here as we broke through our high. Now this becomes a higher time frame area of interest because it's our 5 minute fair value gap as well as our hourly swing high. So right, this in itself is even more important because it's breaking through a higher time frame structure and now leaving behind, right, lower time frame discount arrays. If I go ahead and drag this out, you'll see that that fair value gap held us beautifully going into the afternoon. And from then on, right, it really was just all up. So really not too much to cover in all of this because really any discount array that's forming in this whole run up, you could use. Right, so we have a YouTube model forming here and fair value gaps that hold, right? Fair value gaps hold. All these swing lows that get created are holding. And we're in a strong buy macro to wrap up the day. You'll see that this whole leg up here, right, what is it reaching for? So as you see, right, this whole run up here was simply reaching into, right, this buy side target here. So this swing high that was left behind, You'll notice how we run up there, just barely sweep that level. Right, clearing buy side. And now if I pull up also, right, our new week opening gaps, can't forget about those. You'll see that we're consolidating right around this week's new week opening gap. So the new week opening gap created for the trading week we are in now. After clearing buy side, you'll notice how we just consolidate right around that level. And also just to point out, notice how we create little short-term lows here in a power hour. And as we always explain, if from 3:15 to 3:45 we don't get much action, just like we had here, we expect 3:50 to 4 to offer us that movement. Right, and like clockwork, just like it has been the past few days, we consolidate during that macro time. And at 3:50, from that 3:50 to 4 o'clock window, you'll see that we come, run these equal lows, return into the low of that new week opening gap level, and from there, expand straight into that buy side liquidity. And notice it happened right at 4:01. So 1 minute a little late, but that's allowed. That idea still played out beautifully. Went from that discount straight to that premium. And just like we mentioned, now we're consolidating just around that new week opening gap again. Going into tomorrow, it'll be Friday. So we'll no interest in trading tomorrow. But we will want to see now whether or not, as we go to the daily. So just as I show you on the daily here quickly, we'll want to see this huge up close candle, Are we now going to attack highs here? Or will we just have an inside range day with it being Friday? So not too much as far as forecasting, what we have. We'll just let tomorrow play out and get back to it next week. So yeah, I hope you guys found that helpful. And until we talk again, take care and be safe.